Morning, Glory America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. It's Hugh Hewitt on May 15th, Friday. As promised, the National Security Advisor to President Trump, the Ambassador Robert C. O'Brien, joins me. I always disclose he's an old friend, former law partner. Good morning, Robert. How are you?
I'm doing well, Hugh. How are you this morning?
Good. My first question, I get my Google alerts, my Robert O'Brien alerts, and up pops one yesterday. You've written something, a very important story, which I read last hour for the audience on ventilators. It's on Fox News. Why is this not in the New York Times?
Well, look, first of all, I want to say I couldn't be more pleased to have been published by Fox News. I've written for them for many, many years, and always honored when they publish something. I'm not sure why the mainstream press is not interested in good news or accomplishments of the administration of fighting the virus. And perhaps for the Times or New York Times, LA Times, that sort of thing. But couldn't be more pleased to have have Fox's viewers and readers see the piece.
I am too, but I'm curious. Did you offer it to the New York Times?
I don't want to get into it, but the Times, New York Times, LA Times had a chance to run the piece, and I don't think it fit with their narrative of how the administration's responding to the virus, which has been really outstanding, and so I think they took a pass on it.
It doesn't fit their narrative, and I'm going to come back to that in a bit. I just read a story about Ivanka Trump and the Farmers to Families food box program. That won't fit their narrative either. I'll bet you anything you will not see this $1.2 billion program that buys food from farmers, gives it to distribution centers to pack and give to people in need. You will not see that, Robert O'Brien, just like the ventilators story. And I think our media is broken. Before we go to the ventilator story, do you agree with me?
Look, I think there's some problems there. And let me just give a huge shout out to Ivanka Trump and to her husband, Jared Trump. They're both senior advisors to the president. Since the outset of this crisis, they've rolled up their sleeves, dug in with a number of hundreds of thousands of other people in the government to respond to this crisis. And Jared with the ventilators, Ivanka with the food banks, and making sure that both our farmers are protected during the crisis, as well as the consumers who need to get their food. It's been pretty astounding to watch how both of them have responded to the crisis. I'm proud to be their colleague.
You know, it does distress me. When Mrs. Obama did things for military families, I was always the first to applaud her. I don't know what's happened to our media. It is completely infected with TDS. And so a ventilator story like this one, or the farmers to the box program that Ivanka is running, it just makes me distressed that our media is broken. Let's talk about ventilators. Apparently, I read your article on air last hour. We're going to have 100,000 plus ventilators by the end of July. I thought we were going to run out of these.
Well, early reports, and you'll remember even WebMD back in early March, the experts on WebMD and all the networks were reporting that there would not be enough ventilators for COVID patients in America that would need them. It was a crisis. There was no way to produce the ventilators fast enough. And we had a great team: Adam Bowler, Peter Navarro, Jared Kushner, who I mentioned earlier, and many others got together with industry. And we started producing ventilators the same way we produced fighter planes at the outset of World War II. We've got a number of great companies, and we're going to have over 50,000 in the U.S. stockpile. In fact, we have so many ventilators now we're able to turn to our partners and friends around the world who are desperate for them and supply ventilators to other countries that require them.
Now, you mentioned, I've known Navarro forever. We've been sparking it up for 30 years. We go to Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young concerts together, and we yell at each other. So I know him. I've met Jared once. I don't know who Adam Bowler is. I have no idea who that is. I've never heard, by the way, of Vire Medical or Zoll Medical. Of course, I know what GM and Ford are. This is quite the elaborate effort.
It's been a great effort. Adam Bowler is the head of what used to be called OPIC. It's the Development Finance Corporation. We finance projects around the world using taxpayer dollars to encourage American businesses to invest in countries where there are great projects for American businesses and where we can compete against the Chinese and others. And Adam came over to the White House on leave from the agency he chaired to work on the ventilator project. It's been fantastic. And all these companies have been great. Medtronic, Hamilton, GE, Zoll, Vire, GM, which started from scratch with a partner. We really put the American industrial base and American innovation to work. I even want to make a shout out to the scientists at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, JPL, out in California. They figured out how to manufacture a low-cost ventilator for $3,000 or $4,000 and put it on their web page and allows folks to use the design royalty-free in developing countries to build ventilators quickly and safely. So there's just a bunch of American innovation that's taken place in this project, and I'm sure proud of all the folks involved.
You hint in this piece that you're in the room where it happens, as they say in the Hamilton music, when the president is talking to foreign leaders, and you mentioned Brazil, Bolivia, Ecuador, France, India, Indonesia, Italy, Kenya, Pakistan, Paraguay. Do they ask for ventilators?
They do. We've had heads of state, once the word got out that the U.S. might be able to help provide ventilators, we've had heads of state from 5 continents reach out to us. Latin America, Central America, Mexico, Canada, our allies in Europe, all throughout Africa, Asia, and these machines are life-saving, and many of these other countries did not have the ability to do what we did to ramp up manufacturing, and so we've committed. The president is committed to our friends and partners, and even folks that aren't necessarily partners around the world. Over 15,000 ventilators, I think we've shipped or will ship by the end of May. Over 6,000 ventilators, and it's and the great thing, Hugh, about the United States, we don't ask for anything in return like China does, or there's no attempt to bully these countries. The American people, out of their own generosity, for countries that can't afford to order them, donate them through USAID, and for the countries that can afford them, we allocate them to let the manufacturers know that they can ship these ventilators overseas. It's really a wonderful project.
I want to come back to that in a second. You mentioned China bullying people. They're trying to bully us. They're trying to bully Senator Cotton, Senator Hawley, Congressman Crenshaw, Congressman Chris Smith. They've gone after Martha McSally and Marsha Blackburn, some state AGs. What's the response of the United States to the Chinese Communist Party telling us that they're going to sanction our freely elected legislators and attorney generals?
Well, look, I don't think that Josh Hawley or Tom Cotton or great senators or Dan Crenshaw is a friend. I don't think they were planning on vacation in Wuhan anytime soon. So I think the impact of those sanctions are zero. But it does show the way that China is attempting to bully not just smaller countries, which is well known, but even the United States. The United States doesn't take well to that sort of diplomacy. That won't go over well for the Chinese. And as far as the courageous politicians involved that are standing up to China, they're going to have the support and the admiration and the love of their fellow citizens. There's no question about it.
Now, the media likes to present President Trump as not great at diplomacy. You're in the room when he talks to these leaders. How do these conversations go?
Hey, I wish, and I've said this before on TV, I wish that every American could see their president speaking with these foreign leaders. He's incredibly gracious with them. He has a great rapport. President Trump, there's no question about it, is the best diplomatic tool we have in the country, and for those who've seen the back and forth with with what the president calls the fake news and press conferences and that sort of thing, you got to see the side of the president talking to his foreign leaders. He encourages them, he gives them advice, he listens to them and their stories and what's happening in their countries, their successes and failures. With some of the younger foreign leaders, he mentors them. He's always telling countries, whether it's South Africa or Paraguay or even some countries that might be adversaries, how much the U.S. supports them, how much the American people love them and want their people to get through this COVID virus. Almost uniformly, I think we've had either 45 or 50 calls, most of those with the president, but in some cases, because there have been so many, he's delegated them to me to speak with the prime ministers or presidents. But in almost every case, the countries have expressed dismay at how China handled this, how the World Health Organization handled this virus outbreak. We've talked about how we've had 5 plagues come out of China over the past 20 years, with not just COVID, which has just wrecked the world economy, but SARS, bird flu, avian flu, H1N1, MERS probably came from China. It's the whole world is waking up to the fact that we've had just plague after plague come after China, and that China has a massive public health problem and needs help from the world to solve it. But we just can't have these viruses and plagues coming out of China any longer.
Last question, if Taiwan, the freely governed island of Taiwan, if they need ventilators, will we send them to Taiwan even though it will tick off the CCP?
Absolutely. And by the way, Taiwan, from the outset of this crisis, has been great to the United States and has sent us hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of masks for our hospital workers and citizens. And Taiwan's a great friend. If they need ventilators, they'll have them. No question about it.
National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien, thanks for the time this morning, and thanks for the update on this. I cannot believe the New York Times did not run this piece, but I'm glad that Fox News did. Thank you.